Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Tech20 Tuesday, and it is 2013, so Happy New Year as well to everybody out there. It is another edition of Tech20 Tuesday, and to start off 2013, we're going to take a look at Google. Everybody knows Google. They are the internet, web-based internet service in the world, and they differ from Microsoft in that all of their tools, or at least most of their tools, are web-based, and that's a real interesting item in itself. But today we're going to start to look over the next 3 weeks at some of the more common Google tools, if you will, that you can start to think about using in your classroom with your students. And the first set of Google tools, which are probably the most commonly known ones, are those Google Documents. Now, some of you have emailed me today and said, isn't it called Google Drive? And yes, it is. So that was item number one on the agenda, is that for those of you who are familiar with the old term Google Docs or Google Documents, Google has now changed the term or the name of that suite of tools to Google Drive. And we'll talk a little bit about what that means in terms of how it works, because what they're seeing this now is almost like a virtual drive. And some of you are familiar with, and it really works much the same way, the U drive or your personal drive on the computer, on the network drive here at school, which will allow you to go in and save documents in there in your My Documents folder, and you'll be able to access them whenever you are connected to the network and make changes to them. But Google Drive is even more powerful than that. So we're going to talk a little bit about how it works. So let's start with Google. So we're going to flip over to a regular Google page. Now this is a Google page, and for those of you who have Google accounts, you will notice, and Google Drive, by the way, will only work if you have a Google account. So you need to have a Gmail or a Google account. And you'll notice that when you have a Google account and you are logged in, your username will appear up here in the top right-hand corner. So I'm just going to give that a little circle, and there is my name right there. So that is my username. So when I am signed in, then that name will appear. Now you should know that when you are logged into Google, Google can actually track all of your web usage. So they can see what web sites you go to, and that data is actually, they're collecting all that, and that's really important to them in terms of their marketing and how they monetize their services, is they sell that data to other people, but that's a whole other story. So when you come across here, you'll notice that there are a bunch of things, and we're going to talk about the Google Plus service. You'll notice that my name over here has a plus Jeff beside it. We're going to talk about that over the next week or two. But today we just want to deal with this one. Of course, there's Gmail right here, but we want to deal with the one beside it. And if you were on here a while back, you would have seen Google Docs. Now you see the term Google Drive. They really are the same thing. Google Drive is just sort of an amped up version of Google Docs. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to click on Google Drive. When I click on Google Drives, what I'm going to see are a whole series. Is it going there? Did I click on it? There we go. So when I come in here, what I'm going to see basically is an area where I can have all of my documents, and these are all web-based documents that are in that I have stored on my Google Drive account. You'll notice here that I have them actually in folders, so you can create folders just like you would on any normal drive. And this really is meant to look very much like a regular storage drive that you would find on your computer or on a hard drive or a jump drive or whatever. So I can put all them in here. So this is 1826 PD. For those of you who aren't members of MBTA branch 1826, I'm the PD chair here. So I've got a bunch of documents in there. Got a bunch of documents surrounding collaborative projects that I'm working on, a bunch of documents around the Fredericton Boys Fast Pitch Association, and a whole bunch of stuff or on the outside of folders in the drive. So when I want to go and create a drive, so we'll start with a very simple thing. All I do is come up here, and you'll notice up here in the top left-hand corner underneath the word drive, there's the word create. And so I would just click on that, and it gives me a number of different options. So there's create a document, create a presentation, create a spreadsheet, create a form, and by the way, next week we're going to look at forms specifically, create a drawing, or I can create a new folder. So if you think about this in terms of the Microsoft Office suite, a document would be very similar to a Microsoft Word document. A presentation would be something that you would sort of make a connection to in terms of a Microsoft PowerPoint, Microsoft Office PowerPoint. And a spreadsheet would be Excel. So those would be the three biggies that you would be using, and they very much have parallels to the Microsoft Office suite. And in fact, you can import and export documents from Microsoft Office on your computer into Drive. So if you've created a document that you now want to share and collaborate with somebody, you can put them in here, and vice versa. So if you've got a document on here and you want to take it out and use it offline or put it on a jump drive and share it with somebody, rather than doing that in Google Docs itself, you can do that and export that document. So if you have a spreadsheet and you want to give somebody a copy of it or work with it offline, you can go ahead and save those and export them as either Microsoft Word documents, PowerPoints, or Excel spreadsheets. So today I'm just going to start, and I'm just going to do a real simple one. We're just going to create a Word document, or what they would call a document. And you'll notice here that it automatically creates an untitled document. I could give this a name. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a name of Tech20Tuesday Testing. So it's very much like a document that, or a word processor that you might see in Microsoft Word. Not quite as elaborate, but it certainly does the trick. So I can simply Tech20Tuesday, and this document is meant to demonstrate Google Docs, or better yet, Google Drive. I can now format these much like I would, so I could center this. I could make the text a different color, so I can go to red. I can make it a different size, so I could make it 18. I can bold it. I can choose a different font. And these are all the kinds of things that you could do in a regular Microsoft Office option. So what's the benefit, you say? Well, there's a couple. First of all, Microsoft Office only allows you to store a document in your computer or on a jump drive, so it physically has to have somewhere where you can store it. Now, if you have something like some offline storage or online storage like we do at the school, that's an option, so you can definitely put it on some of those My Documents folders, onto your U drive, those kinds of things. But the neat thing about this is that you now have access to this document anywhere in the world. You don't have to carry your computer with you. You don't even have to carry a jump drive with you. You can carry this document with you anywhere in the world that you have access to it. And by the way, Google Drive also has apps available for mobile units, both pads, so iPads and Nexus and all those ones, or not Nexus, the other machines, and the non-Apple machines, also for phones. So I have access to all of my Google Drive documents right on my Apple my iPhone, and you can get those on any of the phones. So the Samsung Galaxy tablets and all those as well. So Google Drive is very much transportable and transferable between platforms, so you can actually easily pull them up because they are cloud computing, so they're web-based. So the other thing that's really interesting here is you notice that I can actually come up here and click on the Share button, and you'll notice that it will give me a list of people who have access to this document. So you'll notice right now it says private, so only the people listed below can access, and I'm the only person right now. But if I wanted to, I could actually share this document with other people. Now, I was in George Street Middle School the other day, and I was working with a group of students on a project, and I said, okay, I want you guys to take 10 minutes and just do some brainstorming about what your video is going to look like. I was talking to one of the students, and I turned around, and every student had a laptop open. And I'm thinking, why do they all have their laptops open? And I looked, and every one of those students actually were on a Google document, and they were collaborating because they were working in groups. So a group of 4 students all had the Google document open, and they were each individually adding content to that. Very powerful collaborative platform. So they could each change things, add things, do things all simultaneously, and the other people would actually see that document. So they all had their fingers in the pie, if you will. And it works really, really well in that I could start a document. Other people either at the same time could be watching and adding their 2 cents worth, not just verbally, but also by actually physically going in and making changes. And they can, as long as you're not overwriting in the exact same space, all the changes will work together. Or I could start a document and then go away, and then somebody else could come in later and add their 2 cents worth. So there's both synchronous and asynchronous collaboration that can take place within a Google Doc. Same thing, not just with the documents, but also with the presentation and the Excel spreadsheet format. So they're really, really powerful in that way. And I said to the kids, I said, wow, you guys are using Google Docs. Who taught you that? Where'd you learn that? And they said, our teacher from last year, Mr. Baudry. So a shout out to Mr. Baudry down at George Street Middle School, who had his kids using Google Docs as a collaborative tool for planning, for writing documents, and for sharing their information together. So I'm just going to hit, I'm not going to save this or share this with anybody, but you get the idea. So now I'm going to hit done. So, and by the way, this is automatically saved. So I don't have to make sure that anything's saved. Any change that I make is automatically saved as I come out. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to go back to my Google Drive. And you will see now that the document that I just created here is called Tech20Tuesday Testing. So it shows up in my Google Drive. Now I could drop it into one of these folders if I wanted to, just by dragging it and dropping it. You'll notice that it drags and drops quite nicely, but I'm not going to because I'm probably going to just delete it later. Now you'll notice here that it says My Drive. My Drive are the documents that I've created, but there's also one right below it that says Shared with Me. These are documents that I wasn't the originator of, and I'll click on that, but that these are documents that other people, that other individuals have started. You see here that Wendy Thomas has shared some stuff with me, Lori Humble, Brian Facey, Carla Roy. So these are documents that were created by other people, but they shared them with me. I can now go in here and edit and work on these documents or make copies of these documents and make them my own. So it's a great way to collaborate and share content amongst students, teachers, others. Really powerful, powerful platform. As I said, they have not just documents, but they also have presentations. So if I click on the presentation, you'll notice here that it actually will give me some templates that I can choose from and allow me to do different formats. It works very, very much like PowerPoint, absolutely. So here's the background and the layout and the themes that I can choose from. So there's just simple, and once I have it done, and I could work, like I said, with somebody halfway around the world developing this presentation, and then I can export it into my computer for presentation if I'm not sure I'm going to be able to be online or offline. Now, like all good tools, there are a couple of things that I do want to make sure that I tell you about. First of all, Google allows or does not allow, because to actually work in Google Docs as a teacher, you either have to create an account for your student, which would be maybe a generic student account that all of your students could log in with into this. If you want them to have their individual student accounts, I believe that the age that Google has is 13. So you wouldn't be until grade probably 8, maybe 7. Some of your kids will be 13. So by grade 7 and 8, you could start to introduce this as their own. They could create their own Google Drive accounts or their own Google accounts. They're basically a Gmail account. Now they're expanded to their whole range of services. So that's the one thing, is that minimum age. The other thing is that we have to be really careful when we're storing data online that we don't include data that identifies a student personally. So if they're going to create a student account, what I would encourage you to do is to go over with your students that nowhere in any kind of online format should they include their full name. So I would use first names, last initials only. I would make sure that they're not putting data on there that would personally identify their phone number, website, personal website, Facebook links, any of that content. This really should be safe, and even though it is a kind of a public thing, and you can actually make Google Docs private, by the way, you saw there. So I would encourage your kids even to work in private documents so that people just can't get in and find them, but make sure at the very least that they're not giving away personal information that would allow others to identify and find a way to contact them. And that doesn't go just for Google Docs. That's for every kind of platform that you're going to be using web-based, whether it's wikis, blogs, it doesn't really matter. All of those platforms have those same criteria, so we really have to be safe about that. So be aware of the safety issues, and that the kids aren't using it to identify and aren't putting data on that's personal, that's going to identify them. And make sure that the students are of the age of 13. Now you can create a classroom Google account, so you could say, the Google username is grade 5 at Gibson Neal Memorial Elementary School, so you create a username and share that username, but you won't be able to track student work, or you would not be able also to have students individually sharing projects with a group in a private way. So there's some pros and cons to it, but just be aware of those as well. If you have any questions about how that all works, I would encourage you really to talk to a technology mentor here in Anglophone West School District. There are two, Janice Shaw and Wendy Thomas down in the Oromocto Education Center. Up in Woodstock, it's Angela Taylor and Waylon and Mark, and here in Fredericton, Carmel Desjardins, Brandon McDonald, and myself. So you could talk to any one of us, and we can help you get your Google Docs set up. So Google Drive is the new name for Google Docs. It really is an online content creation and storage system where you can share, and really it's a very powerful thing where you can use these to create all kinds of different content that students can collaborate on, whether it's around across the classroom or around the globe. You can have these kinds of sharing and collaboration tools available to you, and as well, as I said, these are this is the future. Cloud computing is the future. These are the kinds of things. Memory, even things like jump drives, memory sticks, those kinds of things are quickly going the way of the dodo bird. Your computing will all be, there will be hard drives will basically cease to exist in very few short term. So we really should get used in preparing our kids for these. I am here for a few more minutes. If you're interested in asking a question, you can either pop open your microphone, which is top of your screen in the menu there. You'll see the little microphone. There's also a little person there, and I do have my iPad that I'm monitoring off of, so you can actually go in there, and there's a chat menu. So if you click on the very right-hand side of that little menu bar, there's a little individual with a cloud, or a little comment thing above his head. So if you click on that, it will open up a comment section. You can go in there and text me a comment as well, and I'll be here to answer any of your questions for the next few minutes. But that is Tech 20 Tuesday. Next week, we're going to look at Google Forms. Google Forms is a really cool tool. What it allows you to do is actually create your own surveys, and it has a multitude of uses within the classroom for collecting student data, so students can use it for authentic information, and also all kinds of other things. So away you go. We will see you all again next week. Hope you've enjoyed this session, and welcome again back to 2013. We'll see you next week on Tech 20 Tuesday.